There are some rare moments in the world of tech when something truly revolutionary arrives. A device so bold, so innovative, so unthinkably advanced that it redefines what we thought was possible. It challenges the status quo. It bends reality. It speaks to the future itself and says, I'm already here. The OneX sugar is not that, but it is freaking weird. And it's like they always say, if you can't wow them, then weird them. Nobody says that, but they should. Hey there, how you doing? I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. This is the OneX sugar, and it's something strange, but also something unique and really cool. It might be perfect for you, the one you've been waiting for, the one handheld to rule them all, or it might also be completely useless for your needs. Basically, if you don't need what this does, then there's no reason to consider it. But if you do need what it does, the OneX sugar can give you an experience you can't get anywhere else in this hobby, or the universe itself, really. So for that reason alone, I'm freaking excited that this thing exists. And I think this is going to be a fun video because there is a lot to talk about with this strange and unique and frankly confusing thing. And if that's not enough of a hook for you, then I don't know. Maybe go watch a video about normal rectangles. I won't be mad. I'll just be here with my 2-screen freak device, whispering sweet nothings to my sugar. That's what I call it, by the way. My sugar. By the way, my unit is a prototype. See, it says prototype on the back. So some stuff might change in the final version, hopefully for the better. That would be weird to change something and make it worse. This monstrosity is rocking a beefy chip, the Snapdragon G3 Gen 3. That's the same chip that we have in the iNeo Pocket S2. We also get 16 gigabytes of RAM, clocked at 8,533 megathings per second. We also get 512 gigabytes of UFS 4.0 storage. The screen is two screens. Both are OLED. The big wide one is 6 inches with a resolution of 1080 by 2160. And then we have a smaller, almost square screen, 3.92 inches, 1080 by 1240. We also have a big old 5,600 milliamp hour battery, Wi-Fi 7, and Bluetooth 5.3, and it's running Android 14. It's this big, and it weighs this much. On the front, we have our main screen, and on the left over here is a D-pad, but that's not actually a D-pad. That's a magnetic attachment that covers these D-pad style buttons. I call it a magnet pad. Under that is our left stick, and under that is a combo Android back button and select button, dual front-facing speakers down here. Over here, we have our right stick. The sticks are Hall sticks, by the way, our face buttons, and down here is a combo quick settings and also a start button. Underneath, we have a USB-C hole. On the left side, we have some fancy RGB stylings. Underneath there is a sneaky hidden volume wheel, and we get the same thing on the right, but under there is a sneaky micro SD card hole. Up top, we have some larger micro switch bumpers and some smaller sort of raised up triggers and an extra function button here, power button, volume up and down, and around back is a whole bunch of stuff. We have some metal looking vents and accent designs. These aren't actual metal, they're just shiny plastic. Why is there a screen on the back, you ask? Oh, because that can fold up to give us the second screen up top on the front, or these controllers on the side can flip up like some kind of retro handheld transformer, and then you turn the whole thing around and now you have an almost completely different device. What madness is this? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, so I can't say you're wrong. If you don't love the look of this thing, I don't think anyone would blame you, but for me, I freaking love it. But I look at lots of handhelds, so the fact that this thing is so different is probably just getting extra brownie points from me. The materials and components are mostly good with a few weird choices. The plastic is kind of this almost soft, powdery kind of feel to it plastic. It feels good, but it's not my favorite. And these fake metal accents, I don't like these. They are super fake looking. Like you could tell right away these are plastic and not metal. I wasn't sure how the hinges would feel, but I gotta say these feel great. Strong and firm with a satisfying magnetic snap where appropriate. As with all hinges, the longevity is something you can't know until people get this into their hands and use it a ton. And also the company told me that they're going to be upgrading the hinges. So my unit is a prototype, but the final device will have reinforced metal hinges here. So that's good. Now, the main thing you're probably wondering is, what is it like to actually hold and use the sugar? Does it all come together like a retro origami bird? Sorta. I do like what they got going here, but each sorta configuration mode has its own quirks. First, we have DS style mode, 2 screens. This is probably the most interesting and the most awkward. It's a little bit top heavy, the triggers flare out in the back, and while it totally works, it's not exactly ergonomically perfect or anything. Compared to my 2DS, it's definitely more Frankenstein feeling, but it's playable, and I did have fun playing games, so, you know, it's fine. And then there's extra screen mode, horizontal with the second screen popped up top, which actually makes sense if you want to do 2 things at once. It feels pretty solid like this, not too top heavy. Honestly, this mode feels about the same as just using it in horizontal mode, which is your standard 2-hand switch style setup. And when it's like this, when it's all folded down, it's pretty chunky, but totally usable. But if you're picky about hand feel, this thing might not make your fingers as happy as something with more ergonomic considerations. There's also 2 bonus weird modes. One is from the promo material, and it shows the sugar using this small screen at the back, but I think of that as more of like a kickstand. That's actually pretty useful. And then there's the accidental mode that I discovered, holding it vertically with the screen off to the side. Now, I don't know what this would be for, but I guarantee there's at least one weirdo out there who's been praying for exactly this setup. Talking about the controls is tricky because they're all tied into the device's weird mutant design, like the D-pad. When the sugar's in regular mode, you want these buttons to be a D-pad, but when it's in DS mode, you don't. So this is their weird little solution. I wish it was good, but it's not. It totally sucks. In use, it registers false inputs all the time. You try to go down in a menu and it jumps right. I'm constantly just accidentally toggling things in RetroArch. And it's fine for looser arcadey games. Lots of games actually play fine on it, but don't even think about playing Contra with this thing. The good news is you can just pop the D-pad off and just use the face buttons like a Switch style D-pad. And that works totally fine. Not ideal, obviously, but it is usable. And it's better than a janky magnet pad flinging you into the options menu every 5 seconds. One annoying thing, the magnet pad only works on one side, and that's a bummer, especially since DS mode would benefit from a D-pad on this side. It feels like an oversight. I mentioned this to the company, and I hope that they take my feedback and they add magnets here in the final version, so you can put the magnet pad wherever you want. The buttons themselves are clicky micro switch style buttons. Not my favorite, but they're good. They're fine. The bumpers and triggers are a little weird. Also micro switches, and they're a bit loose and flared out in a way that makes sense only because they needed the ability to use them in both modes. You know, when the screen is up, it covers half the handle thing there. So not the comfiest, but considering what they were working with, they came up with a fine solution. It works. The sticks are standard Switch style sticks, but they're Hall effect, so no drift. And they feel great. Honestly, when you're using it in normal handheld mode with the face buttons and sticks, it's a legit solid gaming experience. It really just depends on your priorities. If you're super picky about controls, this probably isn't the device for you. But if you're a weirdo who wants your handheld to fold, twist, snap, and amaze your friends and coworkers, then welcome to the Sugar Zone. We have magnets here in the Sugar Zone. Also, subscriptions to TechDweeb on YouTube, free for a limited time. The actual screens are amazing. We've seen this little squarish screen before. It's the same screen that's on the iNeo DMG and the Retroid Classic, and it's awesome. And the big screen, I think, is some sort of a smartphone screen. I don't think we've seen this one on a handheld yet, but it's also amazing. Super bright and crisp, OLED goodness, great saturated colors. I mean, they're OLED screens and they're really good, so there's not a lot to talk about really, other than the weird screen position and stuff, which we'll definitely talk about in a minute. The system is a very bare bones version of Android 14. And it's hard for me to review this because this is all going to change. They're going to have an all new system and stuff by the time this ships to backers, but there's barely anything on here right now. There's no Play Store or Google Chrome or YouTube or anything like that for me. One thing they do have here that I can talk about is their little app that is used to change system stuff. You can push this button to bring that up, and in here you can change screen stuff and toggle between performance modes and some basic fan settings and change the RGB on the sticks and the side of the device and some gamepad options. You can also do updates here. It's a pretty basic piece of software, but it works fine. I don't know how much of this is going to change by the time it's launched, but what's here works well enough. And then in here, you can change which screen is the main one. That's where your Android home lives, where all your stuff launches. The other screen acts like a bonus screen with its own mini launcher. So you can be gaming on one screen and pull up a walkthrough on the other screen, or you can pull up YouTube and watch a TechDweeb video while you're playing a game. Living the dream. And then there's Fusion mode, which is actually really cool. It tells the system that both screens are one big screen, which is how you handle DS and 3DS emulation. Drastic and Citra let you position the screens however you want. Out of the box, DS and 3DS games were, they just worked. They were configured properly in dual screen mode. That was a nice surprise. Dual screen DS and 3DS is the big draw with the Sugar, obviously. But since this is a hybrid handheld, it makes sense to also expect stuff like widescreen GameCube and PS2 and PSP and Nintendo Switch. I mean, that's the dream, right? A high-res upscaled 3DS that transforms into a Switch or a GameCube or an everything box. It's like all Nintendo consoles in one. And honestly, it does it. It delivers on that promise. I've got some nitpicks about the controls and the ergonomics, but in terms of raw gaming, the Sugar has it where it counts. DS is amazing on here. With Fusion mode enabled, using the standalone drastic emulator, you can size the screens perfectly and it works great. The bottom screen is actually big enough for you to use your finger like a stylus, and surprisingly, that works really well. And 3DS, it's great. I mean, you'll hit the usual Citra quirks, of course. You know, it's still kind of janky depending on the game, and you're going to want multiple different 3DS emulators to get the best results for compatibility, but it upscales beautifully, the touchscreen works, and honestly, I think this might be the best handheld I've ever used for DS and 3DS emulation. And then of course you can switch to playing Switch games. You'll need to juggle a few emulators depending on compatibility, same as always, but since this runs a Snapdragon chip, you get all the goodness of the Black Mesa turnip drivers. And yeah, it runs beautifully. If you want a full breakdown of this chipset's performance, check out my iNeo Pocket S2 video where I tested a bunch of stuff. The short version is it's a beast. You can do Switch, upscaled GameCube with widescreen hacks, PS2, no problem. Now for older retro stuff, this really isn't the best device for that stuff. You can play them, but the controls aren't ideal for retro stuff, and this is overkill, and it's just not a great way to play old stuff. So get this for DS and 3DS, the Switch and higher end emulation, that's where the Sugar shines. Also, I wasn't able to test Android games or run benchmarks like Geekbench since this prototype doesn't have the Play Store. However, even though it's a prototype, the performance is actually incredible. For example, I was able to download the APK of 3D Mark for a benchmark, and I got just insane results. In the Wildlife Extreme test, I have results from the Ein Odin 2 Portal with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip, which got 3,737, and the iNeo Pocket Evo with the G3X Gen 2, that got 4,135. The all-new iNeo Pocket S2, which has the same chip as the Sugar, the G3 Gen 3, that got 4,844, but the Sugar blew them all away. 5,434. Like, it is so much better than everything. And I can't explain why it did so much better than the Pocket S2, considering it has the same chip. But this is promising. I think it should be an indication that there is very little that will hold the Sugar back. Oh, and another thing that I really wasn't able to test properly was the battery, just because I haven't had this for long enough to do extensive battery drain tests. It has a 5,600 milliamp hour battery, so I don't expect it's going to come anywhere near the Pocket S2, but yeah, maybe in a future video I'll be able to give you some real numbers. As with most high-end handhelds, the biggest hurdle is the price. And the Sugar is no different. There's only one version of this, and it's $600 if you get it during the first 3 days of launch. After that, it jumps up to $670. For context, the iNeo Pocket S2 with the same chip and the same spec version is $560. And that doesn't even have one OLED screen, let alone two. No fancy transforming handles or whatever, no weirdness. So yeah, the Sugar's expensive, but it is priced appropriately considering what else is out there. And you are getting what you pay for in terms of the hardware, the specs, dual OLED screens, and a form factor that no one else is even attempting. Obviously, the just get a Steam Deck bros will show up in the comments, and those guys are not wrong. For this price, you can get a Steam Deck and still have enough money left over to buy a kiss from a pretty girl. Hard to argue with that value. Would I pay this much for the Sugar? I don't know. Probably not, but I like to play 3DS games and DS games on my 3DS. So if you want emulation for that, maybe you would pay that. I mean, maybe you've been waiting your whole life for a transforming, flippy, dual screen OLED hybrid handheld that makes people ask, what is that? Every time you pull it out. And if so, I salute you. I love that this exists and I love that you exist. The world needs more glorious weirdness like this because, as the wise men say, if you can't wow them, then weird them.